Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me this week. My guest this week, I have actually two guests on, Matthew and Jeremy from Northern Crescent Iron. Thank you for being my guests and welcome to the podcast.
Hello, how are you? Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for being my guest. Now, before we start, can you both introduce yourselves to us, and then we'll begin our conversation?
Yeah, I'm Matthew Waldrop. I'm the owner and founder of Northern Crescent Iron.
And my name is Jeremy Duke, and I'm the operations manager here, and I've been working with Matt for 9 years now.
Wow. And Northern Crescent Iron has been on Etsy since 2006. So almost the beginning, right?
Yeah, pretty much August 2006.
Wow. So how did you first discover Etsy? How did you end up selling on Etsy?
At the time, my shop was temporarily closed, and I was still in the process of getting it back up and running. And I had relocated from New Mexico back to North Carolina. And at the time, I was just starting to get it back set up. I still had some old hardware inventory from the old shop, and I was kind of doing what I usually did at the time, which was vetting galleries and trying to get secure new retail outlets, driving around and calling people and doing that. And when I was driving around, I heard a news story about it, that this new thing was going out of Brooklyn on NPR. And I got home and got on my little G3 Macintosh computer that like barely works on the dial-up, and found it. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is like, a website where you can just put up an item and sell things on the internet. So I didn't sell anything in 2006, but still it was exciting at the time.
Yeah. So now you guys are professional blacksmiths. That's what you were doing before you got on Etsy, and that's your craft on Etsy. Can we first talk about blacksmithing? How long have you been in the craft? How long have you been blacksmiths?
This is Matt. I've been blacksmithing for about 25 years. I started when I was 15 years old. And I got into it I just met a guy when I lived in Michigan in Ann Arbor, who made medieval armor. And I thought it was amazing, so I just hounded him until he apprenticed me.
Oh, wow. So before you were selling on Etsy, were you crafting items and selling elsewhere?
Yeah, before I was on Etsy, I just had retail outlets that I would work with that I would sell wholesale to. Okay.
Now, so you've been doing it for a while and selling for a while. Do you see any differences between, or have you seen an evolution of the trade over the years that you've been doing it?
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, because of Etsy.com?
Well, yeah, because of Etsy and just in general, just as a craft, because not a lot of people, well, I assume not a lot of people do blacksmithing now, and it's resurging.
Yeah, I'd say because of the internet, I'm aware of a whole lot more blacksmiths out there than I ever thought there was beforehand.
Yeah.
And the ability to be able to get what you do, because it's so expensive to create.
Yeah.
And takes so much time. It's a whole lot easier to get your product to the customer because of, marketplaces like Etsy. You can just put it on there. You don't have to, you're giving them a very small percentage of the sales, so you can actually make it affordable for your customer. And then because you have more customers, you're able to put the energy into fine tuning the way that you create the items to make them more affordable and, find out what customers like, I think it's been incredible.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you a question which might sound really dumb to you, but just for my own education, what's the difference between blacksmithing versus metalsmithing? Or are they similar, the same, or are they two different things?
Well, in blacksmithing, we primarily just work with steel.
Okay.
But metalsmithing, I think you're just using any of the materials. We sometimes do stuff in bronze and stainless steel upon request, but it's not often.
Okay. And in Northern Crescent Iron, what items specifically do you sell?
Our main thing for the last 5 years has been these railroad spike bottle openers and railroad spike knives.
Nice.
We also do cabinet hardware, a production cabinet hardware line that I've been selling for about 12 years, and that sells well on the site. Also, besides that, we do a lot of custom work for people through Etsy, and we do sculptural work. I make these forged butterflies and praying mantises and
nice.
Leaf pieces, sculptural pieces with leaves and tree branches. So we're trying to expand the products that we provide, particularly in the sculptural realm.
Okay. Now, when you first opened your Etsy shop, and it was a while ago, what were your original plans? Did you open it with the intent to sell on Etsy full time? Or at the time, was it an outlet that you were just investigating till you saw what the potential was there? And what has it become now for you?
At the time, I definitely wanted to sell on it full time, but at the time it was brand new. Nobody knew anything about it, so I didn't know what my expectations were for it, and I didn't know what would sell on it. And at the time, I was just trying to get my shop back going again, so I was looking for any outlet to sell through. And being a full-time blacksmith and being self-employed is my life. It's what I'm kind of we're destined to do for the rest of our lives. So you're always looking for a customer, somebody to make something for. What was the other part of your question?
So my question was, so now, well, I think you kind of answered it, because I said, well, what were your expectations and what has Etsy become now for you? And is Etsy the primary venue that you make all your sales through, or do you sell in other places, maybe in person at craft fairs or on Amazon in their new handmade markets?
Etsy is definitely our primary sales avenue at this point. Okay. We noticed a lot of changes, and we saw on Handmade Amazon too. We don't see the same, see it. It's not quite the same as Etsy.
Okay.
I think we have a lot more traffic through Etsy, but we've been on Etsy for a lot longer, and I think have a larger base. I noticed a big difference in what Etsy's become from back then to now. I think those changes happened in 2011.
Okay. So let's talk about that. You've been on Etsy since 2006. What are some of the major changes that you've seen selling on the platform, and which ones do you think have been good for the platform, and which ones do you think were not too beneficial?
I think the biggest change that we saw that helped Etsy take off, that was the most beneficial, was when they stopped charging for per quantity. Up till then, we would sell on Etsy, but I think it wasn't a lot. It would be, $5,000 a year or something like that in sales. It was, a little bit of hardware here, something else there. And when they got rid of that, you list a quantity of 10, you have to pay, what would it be, $2 or something like that. Yeah. When that changed, we were like, oh, well, now we can list a quantity of 100 or 1,000. And then I started to invest in photography and started to take it more seriously and started to try to come up with more products to put on it. And we noticed an immediate difference in sales.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think another big difference was probably when they started having you be able to run your card on there. Because before it was
just
all
through
PayPal. And so I think we noticed quite an increase.
And the shipping labels too, that was huge. Because when we started putting the railroad spike knives on Etsy, they took off and they were selling right out the door. And I remember having to cut and paste and like print UPS shipping labels and like sitting there in the kitchen at 2:00 in the morning.
Oh no.
Cutting and pasting, and when they launched the shipping label button too, we were like, "Oh, look, this is awesome! I can just hit the print the shipping label. It's done. It's just stick the label on." And
yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised sometimes when I find out that some folks still don't use the shipping labels that they provide. I mean, I know you can plug in and use other shipping services now, but it's so convenient, and especially if you're just starting out, it's a huge time saver.
Oh yeah, time is the most important, is the most important thing, I think.
Yeah,
being able to trim down time.
Yeah,
spent on stuff.
Now, one of the things I want to talk about is developing a product line. When you first started on Etsy, or even over the years, how has your product line evolved? How did you decide what items you were going to sell? You mentioned that the railroad spike bottle openers were huge. How do you come up with ideas that sell? And if you do come up with some that aren't popular in the marketplace, how do you handle that? Like close down a product line?
I don't think I've ever closed down a product line.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff I haven't launched because I haven't had the time to develop it and figure out the pricing. A lot of my products just come from my personal experience in my life, and my wife. My wife is a huge influence on what we sell, because usually she says if it doesn't look good or it's not practical, or she'll say that, what are you thinking? But she was the reason why we've started putting the railroad spike knives in that. That I developed that product from personal experience, because years and years ago when I was a kid, I started blacksmithing first, but then for fun in my crazy early 20s, I started jumping freight trains. And
what?
Yeah. I wouldn't do that now. I mean, the laws are way different, but the
the only reason you wouldn't do it is because of the laws, not the safety.
Well, no, I don't condone it either. I got kids now and a wife. I wouldn't never do. I'm 40 years old. But, 20 years ago, I would jump freight trains, and then I'd come home. I had a blacksmith shop in my garage, and when I'd come home, I'd have the spikes in my backpack. So I started out a knife maker, so I would just make the knives and for friends and openers and hooks and whatever, just because they're like the ideal size metal for doing that. And but for years on Etsy we were selling hardware, and my wife would say, this was like in 2011 I think, or 2010, she'd always say, why don't you put the knives on there? Why don't you put those on the internet? And I'd be like, oh, that's just, people won't like that. I was like, it's silly. And I'd say, it'll just interfere with our commissions, because primarily at the time our main work was railings and gates and stuff like that. But the recession of 2008 knocked a big dent in that. So we were kind of really needing to come up with something to subsidize us. And finally she was like, you know, Christmas is coming up. I bet people would buy those. Why don't you put them on? And I was like, we were finally like, okay, sure. And then we, you know, sold 50 of them for Christmas or something. We were like, what? So we were going to take them down. I said, I'll put them back up next Christmas. And then a week later, I'd forgot. And the guy said, somebody called me and was like, I want them for my groomsmen's. I was like, what? Groomsmen's? And that happened 3 times in a week. So then we were like, hey, we should just leave them up and put them in group sets. Yeah, we were like, let's organize them into a group set because everybody wanted a discount. So we were like, I guess. And the other product development, I guess, is just artistic.
Yeah, it's experimental, you know, getting a little bit of time in the shop to take an idea and execute it and then see what you think of the result, or, you know, if you like it but it needs a tweak, you figure out how to do that. And so that just is just time with experimenting, I think.
Okay.
And having a vision of something that you want to see.
Right. I like how your market tells you what they want, you know, like with the groomsman's gift, where it wasn't even on your radar, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, you didn't think you would be in the wedding industry, did you?
No, never.
But it's a good market to be in.
It's a great market to be in.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing too is that like the market also told us, like, because everybody in the beginning when we first put them up, they were like, hey, can you put my initials on them or something? And I had never thought about that, you know. And then I said, let's buy a stamp set and we'll put people's initials on them for them. And then it got into wedding dates and GPS coordinates, and I don't. It gets crazy. The people, because we allow like 30 characters on a knife or whatever. So they'll we had one guy. How many GPS coordinates did he get? He got
it was an actual friends and longitude and latitude coordinates of I believe the destination of the wedding or something like that.
Oh wow.
I mean, you know, we can fit it, so.
Funny. So going forward, like in the future, how do you determine what your future product lines will be, and how do you plan for that?
That is a tough question. Well, one thing, I mean, you always have to be moving and doing future product lines, because when something's successful, other people are going to do it, you know?
Yeah.
So we've kind of have a lot of competition now in kind of what we set out doing. I think there was one other guy at the time we put out the knives that had like one bottle opener on there, and, you know, so, but my main focus has been trying to either kind of go, because the wedding market's great, kind of go around and see kind of what are just other things that people, especially doing the SEO research, kind of, you do a search and then you see like, well, this isn't Blacksmith, but it's made out of wood or it's made out of ceramic and it looks like it's popular, you know, so let's see what we can come up with, like wedding we're working on table numbers and trying to come up with more stuff for bridesmaids, which I'm trying to come up with more stuff that's sculptural. So as a sculpture artist, like I've really wanted to incorporate more of my sculpture work into more practical products that are in the $50 range.
Yeah.
So from our success with the bottle openers, we bought a CNC plasma cutter that helps us cut all of our leaves and that out for our sculptural work. So there's not a whole lot of that on the site yet, but it's coming soon. But I've been so yeah, I guess seeing what other people are doing in other crafts and you know,
seeing if you can parlay that into your craft. Now, how do you deal with competition? You know, Etsy, there are a lot of sellers on there. A lot of markets are, you know, very congested. Do you do anything specific or anything in particular to try and set yourselves and your products apart from those that will compete with what you're trying to sell?
Well, I guess the main thing for us is customer service to stay ahead of our competition. You know, like if somebody goes, "Oh, look at what these guys are making, I'll make the same thing." What kind of, I think, for the groomsmen market in particular sets us apart is that we tell in our listings, like, you know, you're a guy, we know you're a guy, we're guys, we know that you procrastinated till a week before your wedding, and
but it's okay.
It's okay. Like, yeah, you want their names on it, it's cool. We'll stamp it up. We'll get it out tomorrow. You know, we'll get it out in 2 days. And so what I noticed, the way it kind of took off, I was like, and the repeated thing was like, I would get a phone call. I know it's handmade. I know you can't get it to me. You know, so I just thought I'd try to check in and see if I could get it. And I'd say, no, we'll make it right now. We'll get it out for you tomorrow. And because that happens so often, it's like, I'd say 80% of the time.
Yeah.
We've kind of set up this huge inventory system so that we keep 100 of each product on hand at all times. So when something runs low, we have like these bucket racks. There's a picture of it on our Etsy store, but we have all these bucket racks so that we can look in the buckets and see if we're running low on a product, then we'll do an inventory run of it and keep everything stocked. So when somebody but we just keep it right before it's finished. So if somebody calls us up and they're like, "My wedding's next week. I didn't know I was supposed to get the gift." So we're like, "Dude, don't worry about it.
That's funny.
Just buy it. It'll go."
Can you do last minute personalization as well?
Oh yeah.
Okay. One of the things I like that you guys do is right in your shop announcement, you have your phone numbers. So people can pick up the phone and call you. Do you find that a lot of buyers use that opportunity to actually call or text you as opposed to going through the Etsy convo?
Not as much as you would think.
Yeah,
really?
I would say 10% of
10
customers,
15,
10-15% of customers. Yeah, but they really, you know, like, especially people that are way last minute, they really like that they can just call you up or send you a text and get an immediate reply. Whereas if they wouldn't, they don't know if they go through the conversations avenue, if they'll get a reply.
Yeah.
Business day later, or, you know.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to customer service. I mean, usually if I'm ordering something and I have time, I don't really need to speak to someone. But yeah, if I was one of those groomsmen and I just found out and I saw a phone number, I would be calling you. I wouldn't be typing you a message. I'd be calling you.
Or sometimes people just don't, you know, they just want to talk to a human and get their questions answered as far as like what we can do, or, you know, how quickly it will get out. They might not need it for a month or even for a couple of months.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're always 100% willing to like get on the computer, stop what we're doing, answer all their questions, because, you know, the customer service is
key.
It's key.
Yeah,
it's the most important thing.
And I think that another thing that we really try to make a main focus of what we do is, because we're craftspeople, you know, we like to really make sure that our quality is always top notch. I know that for both me and Matt, we want to make sure that when people are getting our products, they're astounded at the price and what they're getting, and we really like to make people happy with the products that we make. So we really try to strive for perfection in our quality.
Nice. Now, I was going to ask you something about that and it just slipped my mind. But let's talk about how you get the word out about your products. What do you do to market? Do you solely rely on Etsy SEO and getting traffic to your shop, or are you on social media pushing traffic to your shop? What's your strategy?
Well, that's a kind of a hard. I don't really have a whole lot of strategy. It's lately SEO. I've been really obsessed with SEO because I noticed when the algorithm changed, I think it negatively affected our sales. And for a while, I felt kind of helpless about, because I didn't understand the algorithm. I didn't understand any of it. So I've been working on that a lot lately, trying to optimize all the keywords. And then I'll try to have like giveaways on Facebook and stuff to try to drum up traffic. But it's really hard to tell if anything works, if anything,
like if it's actually driving traffic to your site or resulting in sales.
Yeah,
I mean, it is hard.
It's like stabbing in the dark.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I kind of do regularly is renew some of the items so that, or like key items so that they kind of stay up in the algorithm.
Yeah.
And I noticed that'll always, it helps. It'll bump your product up at least for, 4 to 6 hours or so during key search times, up a couple pages so that you get some more views.
Speaking of the Etsy search algorithm, the new one, the recent one that they had towards the end of 2015, and this is for you and anyone who's listening who doesn't know this, Etsy has these fireside chats. And in one of them, they actually talked about the search algorithm and what they had changed and what sellers needed to do to help, to adjust to the algorithm, to the new algorithm. I'm going to look for it. I know I watched it. I'll find the link to it and I'll put it in this post, in this episode. So if anyone wants to go and listen to that or watch it, it was a discussion with the what do they call them? I think they're the search engineers, the people who do the search, Etsy search. And so they were talking about it. And so it's just good to hear what the logic behind the changes they made was and figure out how you can adjust to that.
Yeah, I'd like to see that because I definitely noticed that I definitely, when did that change happen? It was
sometime towards the end of 2015 and I don't remember exactly
November.
When.
I think it was because I noticed I don't know, maybe if it was in October or November, because I'll compare my sales stats to the year before and the year before that, and we'll usually see like a specific arc. And then we were kind of like, what is going on? Like, why are we seeing, like on key searches, we're still getting the same amount of views, but on certain searches that are important to us, we get less views.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I've been tackling it on the SEO end of things. The other thing I wanted to mention on that original question and on this whole topic was that I stumbled upon something about, I don't know, a year ago, because remember when they used to have the other ads, it was just based on impressions, and you could just say, oh, I want to spend $20 a day or $5 a day or whatever it was. We got a lot of good results out of that for a long time, and then...
Oh, did you?
Yeah, the original ads, it wasn't the promoted
Not
listing.
the promoted listings.
It was the one before. And so I think I would just set that at the maximum. I think I had it like $60 a day or something. It never got near there. I think it would only ever spend about $10.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they came out with the new search system, it was where you kind of pick your bid.
Yeah.
And that was another thing I had a really hard time understanding. We were scratching our heads looking at that. We were like, what are we supposed to do? I bid $1, I bid 50 cents. I never knew what worked. And then I saw a video that really benefited us a lot from that. And it was just randomly on the forums. I clicked it, and it wasn't getting a lot of response on the forums. And it might be common knowledge now, I don't know. But we lowered our bids and raised our overall spending. We maximized it, and then we lowered our bids really low.
Uh-huh.
And what happened is that at 2 a.m. Or at 12 a.m., whatever time zone you're on, or whether everything operates off Eastern Standard Time, I don't know, but your bid's low, so your traffic's low. But then through the day, if people are bidding high and they spend out their budget, you still have money to spend. Right. Your bids are low. And then what I notice is the views go up and up and up on the...
Oh, I see. So when other people have reached their max, then they move to the folks who had
bidding lower.
Lower bids. And because it's all thinned out, because a lot of people are gone, then you get more hits or views, or not hits or views, but you show up more.
And you're paying less per click. So when everybody's on at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and they're on their iPads or whatever and searching and looking, you're getting more impressions because they're... we noticed immediate change. Yeah. We changed that, and it was like, because our budget would be spent by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were really frustrated. We were like, how does this work? And then I found that, clicked it, watched this girl's video, or this woman's video, and I was like, well, that's it. That makes a lot of sense. I changed it to that, and I've never changed it since. We would get 2,000 impressions a day or something like that, and now it averages about 8,000 impressions a day.
Can you tell if those are resulting in sales?
I guess through Etsy's what they tell you on the page. And I know there's rules and criteria to that, but I think some of them are, if somebody clicks an ad and then is it within 30 days if they buy something out of your shop, or is it registers as a sale?
I don't know. I don't know the details.
I mean, from what the information that we get on our stats, all the promoted listings results in sales.
Okay. Wow. That's good then. Now, do you recall the name of the lady that made the video that you saw, or the YouTube? Was it on YouTube? The channel?
I think it was on, it was on YouTube. She had a link, or go to her website or something. And
oh, okay.
But it was about a year ago, and I don't remember what it was.
Okay. Well, since the strategy is still working for you, I'll do some digging and see if I can find the video. I'll dig around. If I find it, I'll post it in this episode of the podcast. I mean in the blog post, so that folks can take a look.
Yeah, and I would try to run Facebook ads, and I never could really tell if I was getting any results out of the Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And recently I was thinking about starting to run ads again because wedding season's getting here.
Oh, yeah.
And then I thought, you know what? The system on Facebook really looks identical to the ad system on Etsy. And I was thinking about trying that system, like lowering the bid and not doing the automatic bid or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Just lowering the bid and then telling them, oh, I want to spend $5 or $10 a day or whatever it is.
It'll be interesting to know if the results are similar.
It would be. I think it would be. I think if you're going to see results, you're going to see them immediately.
Quickly, right? Yeah. Now, have you also tried Pinterest ads or Twitter ads?
I haven't tried Twitter ads, and I've never had any luck on Twitter. I've only got like 200 or 300 followers or something, and whenever I post anything, it doesn't really get any. And I don't really understand Twitter anyways. It seems like Twitter's just for like the last American Idol or something. Donald Trump or something. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, it's a news feed. Yeah, it's a there's a lot of noise there, and I don't know that it's the best, but the ads are supposed to be more targeted.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't quite know how it works. I know sometimes when I'm on there, I'll see something come up in my feed, which almost looks like a tweet, but then, it looks out of place. And I'm like, well, wait, why am I getting tweets from this person or, this company when I don't follow them? And then somewhere on there, you'll see something. I don't remember exactly how they phrase it, but they're called promoted tweets or something. And I think that's the ad. And they target, again, it's targeted to show up in people's Twitter feeds if they meet certain criteria. Now, I don't know how well it works because I never click on them because for me, the ones I see aren't relevant. And I often wonder why I'm even seeing some of them. So it might have to do with the advertiser not targeting their ads appropriately, or I don't know if it's an issue with the Twitter ads where you're not able to fully target it as well as you can say something like a Facebook ad where you can, drill down so specifically to who you want to see your ads. I don't know. That's my guess, though.
I've run ads on Facebook a few times, and I saw a couple years ago, especially for the knives, I saw really before Christmas of 2014, I saw really good results from the Facebook ads. I definitely saw a big spike in sales, and it was reshared a lot. Oh. And then I went to go do it for weddings the following spring, and then Facebook changed their policies and said no knives. Or you can put knives on there, but then you can't have a landing page to where the knives are sold. So they kept denying my I see. My ad. So then after that, I was like, Facebook, I didn't want to. I've done a lot less ads because I can only put the bottle openers on there, and they just don't have the
appeal.
Right. Yeah. Because people see a knife, or if they see an odd knife, they're
going to look.
Oh, I want to click that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so spending money on on Facebook and violating their rules and trying to or not violating their rules or not having a landing page where you go right to your product, it's really kind of unappealing.
Yeah. Oh, I would imagine. Now let's talk about time management. What does a typical day look like for Northern Crescent Iron?
The normal day for me is I come in 8:00 and kind of look through the orders and make sure I don't have to contact anyone, or if I do, I contact them then. And then I kind of get the order sheet put together with any customizations that people need. And then I get into the shop and start processing some of the orders, or if we have custom stuff that needs to be done, I try and get that all going. And that's kind of my role. And Matt, he's got the unfortunate task of being the office guy as well. I do a little bit of that, but nowhere near what he has to do. So his day is always a little bit different than mine.
And being the office guy, is that the person who answers the convos and responds to questions and customer inquiries?
We both do that because of the app. Jeremy's not just my operations manager. He's like part of our family. He was there for the birth of 2 of my kids and comes to family events, and he's having his. So I definitely trust him. So he has full access to all the account. So we kind of do this tag team thing where I'll answer it, or if I'm in the office and it takes if it's a complex question, I'll just text him real quick, like, I got it, so we've come up with a signature that's like a generic signature that's for both of us.
Okay.
Yeah, because we share that responsibility.
Okay. Now, what about marketing for your shop? Now, you have a website, Northern Crescent Iron. Is that an e-commerce site? And do you also incorporate social media? Well, I know we talked about that a little bit already with the ads, but what function does the website serve? Let's start with that.
Well, I built the website in Dreamweaver by hand.
Whoa.
And
how long did that take?
Photographer friend. Well, he needs some welding, and he did a lot of the photography that's in our stuff.
Okay. He's
a great photographer, and he's like, if you do some welding for me, I'll teach you how to use Dreamweaver. So he gave me a couple lessons, and I built the site. But then a year ago, like a year and a half ago, we tried to hire a company in Asheville to build us a site. And even with recommendations and everything else, to our dismay, with a lot of money invested, he did not do what he said he was going to do. And we tried to get like a nice integrated back end e-commerce site going.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. We had to make him give our money back, and it was so now we're kind of at this point, we'd like to have our own e-commerce site running.
Yeah.
But we're on the fence. I'm working on one through GoDaddy, and then we're thinking about Shopify and all these kind of different standalone deals. And we're not sure. We're kind of on the fence about it, I'd say. When you say that?
Yeah, ideally we'd love to have what we were going for in the beginning, but it fell through, and so we're kind of trying to see where we're at now, and see what's going to be best for us in the future. So we're a little bit on the fence about exactly how we're going to tackle that.
And it goes with the whole, like, what's your day like here?
Yeah.
And, because we would think, well, on one hand, it's like, well, to increase business, well, we should just do a bunch of different Shopify and all these different things. But then the fulfillment part of it is really a challenge, because then you have to log in on all these different platforms to fulfill.
Yeah.
And it's tough enough with just Amazon and Etsy. And then if we add so what we wanted to do with the website originally was to have it custom built so that all we could get on more platforms, eBay and all the different ones, and plug them in and fulfill them from one avenue.
Yeah. And I know I've heard of solutions that pull in multiple e-commerce platforms and marketplaces so that you just log into one place and sell from them. But I was thinking the good thing is that must mean that Etsy is keeping you busy enough right now that, it's a responsibility to run, a separate e-commerce site is just not yet feasible.
Yeah, I mean, it was feasible, but now because of the experience, we had the money to invest in it then, and things got leaner for us in the winter, so we're not looking But then it's like it's a trust thing. We're trying to find another company to build us what we want and be sure that we can, that'll be fulfilled.
Okay. Hey, so I just want to put a call out there. If someone is listening and you've worked with a vendor or a company or an individual who has built you a successful e-commerce website and you're happy with it and you want to make references, go to convome.com/Northern Crescent Iron and just say who you've used so that Matt and Jeremy can check them out.
Oh yeah.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, hopefully somebody has some good recommendations and they can just drop a name here or there and you can see. Because sometimes you just need to find someone who's had a good experience and then just go with their person.
Yeah, and I've done that on Facebook too. I've kind of talked about it with my friends privately, and but it's, I don't know, it's strange.
It's it's not easy.
Living in the future, man. It's like
yeah. So one of the things I want to talk about is now you guys were involved with Fund on Etsy, which, if anyone doesn't know, can we first just explain what that is? And I'd like to talk about what your experience was with that. I think it's all over now, for now anyway. Mm-hmm. But how did you get involved with it, and what was your experience?
Fund on Etsy, Etsy reached out to us and asked us if we wanted to be involved in the beta group, and we did. And I mean, it was definitely an eye-opening experience. Is Fund on Etsy live now on the main platform? Can anybody do that now?
Yeah, well, I mean, anybody can go and see it. I don't know if they're still taking applications at this time.
Because I still have a button to create a campaign on my account.
Oh, you do?
I haven't. Yeah, but I haven't used it because our primary thing is the bottle openers and stuff. So what it did for us was, like, they were like, well, you should come up with something that you don't already sell, to fund. Like, we were trying to fund some equipment in the shop, and what Jeremy came up with was to make what we already sell in miniature. So we, because we were like, well, we want to try to fund something that we already know is proven that'll work, even though it didn't work. Our campaign wasn't successful. I think our goal was too high. So we learned that if you're going to do a funding thing, you want to keep your goal kind of on the lower end.
Yeah. So after having done that, do you think it would be worthwhile to do another crowdfunding campaign, if not on Etsy? Because right now, I don't believe Fund on Etsy is, I don't believe anyone can go and start a new campaign at this time. At least not anyone who wasn't in the pilot program. But say with one of the other crowdfunding sites like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, do you think that would be a worthwhile pathway for someone to take to develop a new product line after having tried it through Etsy yourselves?
I guess so.
I think there's probably a couple of factors that are really important in that, and one, like Matt was saying, is how much you need to raise. And if it is kind of a realistic goal, and then two is, how much the need for the product is there. You know what I mean? Like, if it's something that you really think is going to be useful and people are going to want, and that is kind of a gamble in itself. So
yeah.
It's one of those things where I feel like I've heard a lot of success stories, but then, I've also heard that it just really didn't work out. So it's kind of hard to say definitively.
Yeah, we don't have a whole lot of experience in that besides Fund on Etsy.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
We don't have any experience in that besides fun on Etsy.
Okay. All right.
I enjoyed working with the people at Etsy on that.
Oh, yeah.
And getting their feedback and,
we got to make a video that was pretty cool.
That was pretty cool.
Can folks still see your campaign if they wanted to go check it out? Is it still publicly available or no? Okay.
No, you can't see it.
Okay, so now talking about Etsy, let's talk about, now you guys have been on Etsy for a while now. It's 10 years. What are some of the things, and okay, there might be many, so let's narrow it down to one, maybe two things that you really truly do enjoy about selling on the platform. And then on the flip side, what are some things, if you could see changed, or if there's a feature that doesn't currently exist that you would like to see implemented?
On the first half of the question?
Yeah.
What, can you repeat that for me?
What something that you really like about selling on Etsy or in the marketplace or using that platform?
Yeah, what I really like is being able to be available to the general public. I think is that in my craft in particular, in our craft in particular, the most of my professional career working for other blacksmiths and architectural shops was that your client base was really narrow and your focus was really narrow. It was only either you made sculpture and you took it to a gallery, or you did high-end architectural work and you worked for, wealthy clients. Or you did fabrication work and just put together basic railings for like chain stores and stuff. So your customer base was really narrow, and what you were able to do was really narrow. And what I really like about Etsy is just being able to like have a much broader customer base and sell in the smaller production items. It's just a lot. I think it's just because we do both. We still do a lot of architectural work, but we can't sell architectural work on Etsy. But just not only being available like to the top 1%, but being available to the general public,
right?
And is really fulfilling.
Okay, that's good. And then the other half of the question was, is there a feature that currently doesn't exist on the platform that you would like to see implemented? If you had a wish list.
Yeah, there's for the site itself, my two main things on the wish list as far as the functionality goes, one in short would just be a checklist option, because like the way that we fulfill our orders is we personalize them and then they're ready to go. But every morning we have to print out the whole sheet. So if there was a way to like check off what's been fulfilled so that you can only have to print out what hasn't been fulfilled, but is ready to ship, that would be great. And the other thing would be admin logins. Like, because when you're growing a company, if you're in the push I've seen that on Etsy is that if you have a company that gets rolling, Etsy wants to help you grow your company larger. And, we've seen some shops go get national kind of exposure and just explode. And we were sit back and think, oh my God, like they have 30 people,
Logistics nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you had 10 people or something answering conversations, the way the current system's set up. Whereas if people could have their own admin logins and not have access to the entirety of the account.
Yeah.
And, not see, for instance, like our apprentice logs in on our account. We log him in so that he can fulfill the shipping. He'll go in and pack boxes. But when we're not standing over his shoulder, we're out either working in the shop or I'm working in my office. And I think, what would be going on in his mind if he's looking at our sales stats, but not seeing also our expense stats,
Yeah.
And thinking, oh, I'm only, that's the kind of thing that you don't see the whole picture. You just see one glimpse, and it would be nice to have a lot of information restricted, because you do have to have your employees accessing that information.
Yeah. Oh, that makes perfect sense. So basically, a system that creates separate user roles so that certain people have access to only certain parts of the account when they log in. And no one has ever suggested that, but I think that's a really good idea, because like say for websites where you have multiple contributors, you can have one administrator and then everyone has maybe like an editor role, so that all they basically get to see is just, all they basically get is access to post and edit, but they don't, get to see all the stats or, other things they don't need to see.
Yeah, because like Jeremy, he's, like I said before, he's like one of the family. I don't care if he has my full-time access to my account. But, like somebody we have as an employee to do a job like fulfillment, like packing boxes.
Yeah.
We have to always log them in and then go through their history, make sure that they stayed on that page.
Yeah.
And not, because we say, listen, we don't want you going around our
Yeah.
store.
Yeah.
And then it's like, if they do get your access, say if you had an employee and they had access to the login, and then say things went sour,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then they went in and like deleted all your stuff.
What a nightmare. I wasn't even thinking about that, but yes. Oh my goodness. That would be a nightmare.
Well, we've had some employees, not many, but we've had some that didn't work out and things.
Yeah. And that's normal. But yes, you're right. You do want to limit that.
Yeah.
And I think that would be applicable to a lot of Etsy sellers who are growing, because I know a lot of people, they create the product, but the first place most people get help is with fulfillment. It's just the packing and shipping. And if someone is helping you with just that, you only want them to have access to shipping information. Here's the address. Here's how you print out the label, print it out, pack it, ship it.
Yeah, you just check off, like they log in with their own login. They can get into the main one, and then they can just see the shipping part, or they can just see the combos part, And the other part of that is that Jeremy and I answer both the questions. I mean, to that end, Jeremy and I answer both the questions. We have this kind of back and forth text between ourselves, who's going to handle the conversation. And even though Jeremy sometimes will sign his name Jeremy and leave his phone number to the client, they still think they're talking to me.
Yeah.
So if he had his own login, he'd be like, he could have his name and his title in the company, and they know exactly who they were talking to.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Because sometimes that'll get kind of confusing. Like they'll talk to him and then they'll call me. And they'll say, I was just talking to you on Etsy, and I just wanted. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Sometimes I wonder if I am Jeremy or if I'm not.
But yeah, I think those if Etsy was able to integrate some stuff like that, it would really help.
That's a good one. Actually, that's a good suggestion. I like it. Now, okay, so my next question it's not really a question. It's more for advice. You've been on Etsy for a while. You've seen the changes. You've seen things ebb and flow. You've been around. What advice would you give to a veteran seller who is listening to this conversation? What would you say to that person? It could be maybe a word of encouragement, or I don't know, just something to share with that person. Usually I ask for, advice to a new seller or someone who's thinking about it. But because you've been around for a while, what would you say to someone else who's selling on Etsy right now? Maybe they're just stuck in what they're doing and wondering how to get past this wall that they've hit. What's your advice to that person?
I would say, basically to not give up but also to, I think where we find ourselves right now is kind of, we're trying to create new products to get out there, because we felt like we were kind of stuck in this spot that we weren't really getting out of. And so I think a lot of what we're trying to focus on now is getting new products out there, so that we don't kind of get stuck in this rut that we're doing the same thing all the time.
Right.
And kind of trying to mix it up a little bit.
And I would say on the nuts and bolts end of things, if you do have something that takes off, don't get overconfident, and kind of for a few years I've been kind of seeing sales being a steady thing, and then with the algorithm change, we've seen changes, and we're trying to readjust to that. And I would say, don't get overconfident and keep as much money, like really give it some time before you expand your operation. You have to keep up with demand. I've had to expand, but I think maybe some things I was like, oh, we'll build this extra machine that we don't really need, or we'll
make sure whatever you are investing is going to be an integral part of.
Yeah, and the tools and what you have, kind of push it to the max as much as you can before you add on another product or add on more equipment or more inventory or space,
Okay.
Kind of take it slow, as slow as you possibly can.
Okay, that's wise. Thank you for that. Now, Matthew or Jeremy, do you guys have an Etsy shop shout out that you want to share? Maybe another Etsy seller that has helped you along the way, or whose products you particularly like? Anyone?
Yeah, I'd like to give two, and that's one to our friend and competitor Naz Forge up in Canada. He's also Canada. A blacksmith, and he does some really cool stuff. It's not like our work, but it's iron work, and we really like him, and we've competed with him on the site for a long time, and we give all our best to him. And the other person would be Dahlia. I can't get her last name. You know her last name.
Yeah, Dahlia Abdallah from the Etsy Seller Mastermind.
Yeah. She has helped us a lot with the SEO. We heard her on your podcast, and we benefit a lot from her webinar. And so we wanted to give a shout out to her.
Oh, very nice. I'm glad that you found that helpful and that you found her helpful. And so I'll link back to both Dahlia as well as Naz Forge. If you're on Etsy right now and you just want to type it in, it's NAZF like Frank ORGE. And I'll link to his Etsy shop as well. Tell him that Matthew and Jeremy sent you. And Matthew or Jeremy, what's the best way people can reach you if they want to get in touch with you?
Etsy Conversation.
But we don't make 20-sided dies.
Have you really been asked to do that?
Oh, many times.
Oh yeah.
Really?
We sell those forged dice. And so many people message us and say, can you make us a 20-sided Dungeons and Dragons dice? And we say,
no.
Wish we could. I think maybe one day we'll figure it out.
I was going to say, can't you figure it out? All right. So thank you both for being on the podcast. Thank you for being my guest. Thank you for teaching me about blacksmithing, and just taking the time out of your day to be here. I appreciate that.
And we really appreciate it. We're really happy to be on and be able to talk about it. And
yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.